Hello, my name is Dexter Roussel. I work for the A3J group, and today we're going to go over some common invoice errors in Maximo and how to prevent them. Invoice processing errors in IBM Maximo can stall payments, trigger audit flags, and strain vendor relationships. Whether you're running Maximo 7.6 or manage or on mass, many of these issues are predictable and entirely preventable with the right controls in place. These are the seven common error types that we're going to go over today. Number one is mismatched PO and invoice amounts. For today's purposes, I set up a sample invoice to go over with you. We're going to go over to the invoice application. We're going to change our site for our sample purpose, enter our invoice number. And one of the most frequent issues occurs when the invoice amount doesn't match the purchase order in the line. This can happen due to vendor price changes, quantity discrepancies, or unit measure differences that weren't updated in Maximo before invoicing. Maximo's three-way match engine flags these automatically, but only if tolerances are configured correctly. So price changes I wanted to go over with you on for this one. Price changes for the unit cost could be this one for this example is 780, but the invoice can come in at $800. So the discrepancy lies when the PO was created at $780 a unit cost, but the invoice comes in as $800. Or the quantity discrepancies. As you can see, this we carried over the PO, and the quantity is 15 for the PO creation, but the invoice could come in at 10, but we receive 15, or vice versa. We receive 10, and the invoice comes in at 15. Some prevention steps for these we can set the PO tolerance limits in the organization's application, typically 0 to 5% for unit price variance. Enable automatic three-way matching, PO receipt invoice before approval routing, require vendor acknowledgement of PO lines prices before goods shipment, or use PO revision workflows rather than manual price overrides on the invoice itself. Number two, incorrect or missing GL account codes. On this GL account, it could be missing or the incorrect GL account can be charged. When GL accounts on invoice lines don't match the cost center, asset, or project charged on the originating PO, Maximo either rejects the invoice or posts it to the wrong ledger. And this can create rework in the ERP integration layer and distorts financial reporting. Many GL errors originate not in Maximo itself, but in the upstream data. When chart of accounts changes in the financial system aren't synchronized back. Prevention steps, you can map GL accounts to the item categories and store on locations in the chart accounts setup. We can run GL account validation during PO creation, not only at invoice posting. You can schedule monthly reconciliation between Maximo's GL components and your ERP master, and you lock inactive GL codes from being selectable on new invoices. Number three, Duplicate invoice submission. Duplicate invoices with the same invoice number submitted twice or two invoices for the same delivery are a persistent problem. Maximo has duplicate checking logic, but it only catches exact matches on invoice number and vendor combination. Slight variations can slip through undetected. So, so this invoice is 11 INV 1100. And if you submitted this for approval, it would, once it's approved and you try to submit it again with a slight variation like this, it can go through undetected. Prevention steps: we can enforce a consistent invoice number format convention with vendors and validate via field scripting. We can enable Maximo's built-in duplicate invoice detection in invoice application settings. We can add a fuzzy match check using automation scripts if strict match isn't sufficient. We can also implement a vendor portal or ADI fee to reduce manual rekeying. Number four, invoice without a valid receipt. Approving and paying invoices before a goods receipt or service confirmation is recorded in Maximo undermines the control environment and can result in paying for goods never delivered. This is especially common for service purchase orders where receipts are easy to overlook. In this sample, as you can see, the receipts are none, and this is a material invoice and material PO. But um, if you try to approve this, Maximo is going to flag it and saying receipts has not been received. So it would prevent from being approved. We would have to match the receipts after receiving it. Prevention steps on this: we can set PO lines to receipt required by default and override only with documented justification. And we can configure workflow to block invoice approval if linked receipt is absent or in waiting approval status. For service POs, use service receipts with a confirming signature setup. We can train field teams to complete receipts in Maximo or the mobile app at the time of delivery. Number five, incorrect tax codes or tax amounts. Tax errors can range from applying the wrong sales tax rate to failing to capture use tax on direct ship orders. In multi-site or multi-country deployments, Maximo's tax code setup becomes critical, and misconfigurations compound quickly across high volume invoices. So the tax code here, we can check ours, which is 5%. Automatically brings in the right tax amount. And tax errors range from applying the wrong sales tax rate to failing to capture use tax on direct ship orders. In prevention steps, we can define tax code per site and organizations. Tax codes can keep them updated with the rate changes. Leverage Maximo's tax exempt certificate tracking for exempt vendors and items. Consider integrating a tax engine for cross jurisdiction accuracy, and we can review tax exemption reports monthly before period close. Number six, currency and exchange rate errors. Organizations operating across currencies often find that exchange rates in Maxima at the time of invoicing differ from the rate used on the PO, or the wrong base currency is applied entirely. These variances create geoposting errors and complicate period end reconciliation. Prevention steps: set a consistent exchange rate update schedule, daily or weekly, and automate it via integration framework. We can lock the exchange rate on PO approval so invoices inherit the same rate unless a variance is flagged. Define acceptable currency variance thresholds to trigger review rather than auto approval. Audit currency settings when adding new sites or vendors in new regions. Number 7, vendor master data mismatches. When vendor information in Maximo, like bank details, address, contact, or payment terms, doesn't match what's on the invoice or the ERP, payments are misdirected or held. Stale vendor records are among the most underappreciated sources of invoice failures. So, our remit to address on vendor application for our company has to be updated and make sure that's all correct before moving forward with the approval process. So, our prevention steps, we can implement a vendor onboarding onboarding workflow that validates bank and contact data before activation. We can also sync the Maximo company's application with the ERP vendor master on a scheduled basis. We can require change requests with approval for any edits to activate vendor payment details. We can also run a quarterly vendor data quality audit and check for duplicate vendor IDs and orphaned records. To close, most invoice errors in Maximo aren't caused by the system. They're caused by gaps in configuration, process, and data governance. And the good news is the Maximo provides the controls needed to prevent almost all errors covered here, and they just need to be properly activated and maintained. We can start by auditing your three-way match configuration and tolerance settings, and these can catch the broadest range of issues with least effort. From there, layer in data quality workflows, tax code reviews, and vendor master governance for a robust AP operation. Thank you.